Okay, as I see students are coming back into the session, I want to, before I turn this over to all of you to go solve a problem, which is going to take some time, I want to pull up Replit. Here we go. And let me encourage you. So all of the Replits that are currently due right now, oops, let me hit back. All of the Replits that are currently available, not due, the ones that are currently available to you, the newer ones, they're not officially due until next. So if you look at here, here's the teacher interface, and I can see that. So labs 1, 2, and then problems, lab 3, problems 1 through 6, those were due. You can still complete them, but those were due earlier this week or last week. But lab 3, problem 7 to 13, those are not due until when? The 13th. It says right here. Sorry, I was looking at these other dates. The 13th, which is next Monday night. So don't feel like you're behind if you haven't finished them, but you have everything you need to know. What we've covered is everything you need to know in order to be able to solve those. Even though last time we covered the idea of sealing very, very quickly, but it was covered. But I would encourage you to come back to page these functions, these math functions, part of the library, ceiling and floor. I want to draw your attention to that on page 7. So write that down because you do need to understand ceiling. Page 7, it's just a very simple, something I can very simply do in Python. Let me delete this. If I were to say, I'll call it num1. Num1 equals math.ceil of 4.8. Num2 equals, let me print a lot of these real quick. This will just take a moment. So I'm being lazy. I'm copying, pasting from above. Got to be smart. Num1, cool. Let's copy several of those. Num1, Num2, Num4. How would you do 2 of them? So num2, num3, num4, num4, num3, num2. So if I were to say math.ceil 4.8, sealing, what it does is it says look at the whole number above you. So what's the whole number, the integer number above 4.8? It's not like rounding, but it's similar to rounding. The answer would be 5. The ceiling of 4.8 is 5. What's the ceiling of 4.3? The answer is 5. What's the ceiling of 4.1? It's the answer is 5. 5 is the next whole number above 4.1. In fact, what's the ceiling of 4.0000001? The answer is 5. So when I run that, I get 5 for each one of those. Very important concept of ceiling that I want y'all to make sure you understand that, because you will need that for your replets. So you need to be able to import math to be able to use ceiling. Or maybe you don't. Yeah, no, you do, because it's math.ceil. Cool. So what I wanted to mention on the replets is, this is worth spending just a couple minutes on here, is I've heard that, understandably, that students are sometimes confused on how replets are working. And I say understandably, I mean, it was understandably, if you're doing them, it was understandable during the week 1. But now you should not be confused on what the replit is asking you to do, but you might be confused on how to solve it. But if someone says, hey, I don't know how to read in or what it's asking, then you should message that in Slack, okay? Because if you're here, my expectation is you're here because you want to learn, but let me inform you something that I think is captain obvious, but it's worth stating. And I said it before. We have to tell this message. I have to deliver this message to college students all the time who sit in class. They watch me code. They'll sit there and think they're learning, but I tell them, if you go to soccer practice and you watch everyone play, You look on Wikipedia, you learn the weight of the soccer ball, the dimensions of the soccer ball. You even buy a soccer ball. You're going to be a true gangster. You're going to buy a soccer ball. You're going to walk around with that soccer ball. You're going to memorize all the rules of soccer. Well, guess what? Come game day, you're going to be the worst player if you never kick the ball. You absolutely must kick the ball if you want to learn how to play any of those sports. If you want to learn programming, I don't know if it's more true in any discipline than it is in computer science. If you want to learn it, you have to practice it. And these replets are perfectly designed for that because they're short, they're usually quite simple. But I'll tell you, if you're not kicking the ball, and if you haven't been kicking the ball very much, meaning by solving these replets, then you're going to get way behind real quick. And you're going to come and we're going to go to breakout rooms one day and you're going to see everyone solving a problem and you're going to be looking around like wondering, wow, how are they doing that? Well, it's called kicking the ball. They were kicking the ball, they were practicing, they were solving the replets. But for clarity, with that message stated, let me come and pick any one of these. I'll click problem 2, lab 2, problem 5 from last week. Sorry, I'm not trying to, here, let me hit back. I don't want to see who did or didn't because it doesn't matter if you did something on time. But let me come look at a problem in the future. How about this? Lab next day. Here we go. Minimum of 5 numbers. The point is, here's some problem. It says, given 5 integers, print the smallest of them. Okay, this is a problem that's going to be maybe for next week or the week after. Given 5 integers, print the smallest of them. Well, notice it says example input. Well, you have to read that input. Okay, you have to scan, you have to make 5 values, and you have to scan each one. Okay, this is the idea that I think that a lot of us are missing out on when it comes to these replets. So if I were to come to the Python bootcamp as a student like all of you, oops, that's not it, right here, you'll see that I have not done any of these as a student, or certainly I haven't done most of them. So I'm going to click on Lab 2, Problem 8. What does this say? Here, it was a tip calculator, right? To calculate tip. So notice it says, here's our input, and then here's the output. Well, I want you to understand, on this input, we're not asking the user, please enter the total amount of the bill. So if you did this, if you said total or subtotal equals eval input, please enter the total amount of the bill. And then you said tip percent equals eval input, please enter the desired tip percentage. Let's say you want to tip 18%, which is kind of common. If you did that, and then you tried to solve the problem, and then you hit run, and you entered 56.47, and then you entered 18, and let's just say you printed all of this stuff perfectly, like perfectly, it matches, you use formatted printing, everything looks fantastic, and then you hit submit. It's going to tell you wrong answer. Why? Because when you hit submit, Replit is checking character for character. Is your program working exactly as expected? And I want to draw your attention to the fact that right here, never did we ask the user, or never did we ask you, the programmer, to prompt the user, please enter the total amount of the bill. That wasn't stated. The only input are these 2 things right here. So you would literally, one second, Ibrahim, you would literally simply type the following. You would not prompt the user at all. Yes, Ibrahim, go ahead.
Asking us to prompt the user when you look at example output 1, please enter the subtotal amount, please enter the
Oh, this is a fail of an example. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for pointing that out. That's a failed example. Ay, ay, ay. Is there a better one? Thank you. Here, this is a better one. The triangle. I don't know how y'all solve that then. So I guess that one did need that one. Ignore everything I just stated. Thank you for pointing out the obvious. That one did need the prompting. Look at this one. Ay, ay, ay. Here, Here, on this example of the triangle, if you said, please enter a base and then please enter a height, and then you printed the area is, and let's say you did your calculations correct because it's an easy calculation, you hit submit, you will get the wrong answer. So I want to be very clear here. On this particular problem, all you do is you would have said base, I'm going to solve this very quickly. You would have simply stated base equals that, height equals input. You would have calculated your area. You would have said area equals 0.5 or 0.5 times base times height, and then you would have simply printed area. That's it. And so I come hit submit. I'm not even going to test it. And let me hit refresh because it wants to act silly every now and then. If you get silly errors, just hit refresh. And then I submit, and it says it worked perfectly. So I want to clarify for everyone, you're not supposed to be, if we show you on this example input and output over here, if there's no prompting, if it just says, here's your input, okay, 3 and 5, and your output is just 7.5, that's all you do. You're not putting anything else. Okay, what I'd like to do is come solve one problem because there's been way too much talking today, and that's going to happen every now and then. But starting next week with if else, you're going to see we have so many problems for y'all to do within the session. I want us to solve this problem. We're going to get into groups. You're going to write a program to calculate the number of miles remaining before you run out of gas. So a lot of y'all are juniors, seniors in high school. You likely drive. Maybe you have your own car. Ibrahim, do you still have a question? Okay. If you can put your hand down. So here, if you've driven a car or maybe you've seen while driving, most cars these days, even low-end models, will tell you, it'll have like a range calculator saying that, you have, 212 miles left before your tank will be empty. You have 87 miles left. And then it'll like turn red. You have only 40 miles left. Go get gas type of thing. Well, we're going to program that. We're going to program that right now. And this is going to be just a single instance in time, but we're going to program that exact idea. So first, it's important to see what I'm expecting of the program. And so here is a sample run of the program. And again, all of y'all have access to these slides online. So do yourself a favor, click to slide number 35, but do not skip ahead because you're ruining it for yourself if you look at the solution. Don't look at the solution, okay? So here is the sample output of the program, like a sample full run of the program. We ask, what is your initial odometer reading? And for those who don't know, the odometer is what keeps track of how many miles or kilometers you've driven. So let's say it says that we've driven 50,000 miles already. And how many gallons of gas does your tank hold? 15 gallons. What was the second odometer reading? And the answer is 50,020. How many gallons were left at that moment in time? The answer is 14. So then we calculate you can go 280 miles before needing to refuel. So some of you might already see how that calculation happened, but let's make sure we're all on the exact same page. So here, where we ask, what is the initial odometer reading? 50,000. And then we ask on line 3, what was the second odometer reading? 50,020. I know it's maybe obvious to you, but what does that mean? That tells us how many miles we drove. So someone tell me, how many miles did we drive? Anyone quickly?
20.
We drove 20 miles. How do you know that we drove 20 miles? Quite simply, because we said we had 50,000 and 20 was the second time we looked at the odometer, which is keeping track of how many miles we drove. And the first time we looked at the odometer, it had 50,000 miles. Okay, that's a 0. And so if we do a subtraction, 50,020 minus 50,000, the answer is 20. So we drove 20 miles. Cool. Well, now look at this question with this answer. How many gallons of gas does your tank hold? And you know what? I'm going to reword this. I'd rather say, what was how many gallons of gas do you currently have in your tank? And then after driving or after looking at the odometer the second time, how many gallons were left? That's the idea. But so how many gallons of gas do you currently have? 15. And then after you read this second odometer reading where you drove 20 miles, how many gallons of gas do you now have? Because you've used gas to drive those 20 miles. The answer was 14, meaning we used 1 gallon of gas, right? We used 1 gallon of gas. So we used 1 gallon of gas to go how many miles? 20 miles. And of course, I made the numbers here pretty easy intentionally. So we used 1 gallon of gas to go 20 miles. So that means that we're averaging 20 miles per gallon. So you need to calculate that. Here, the math was easy, but we averaged 20 miles per gallon. And then based off of that 20 miles per gallon, coupled with the fact that we have 14 gallons left. So we just averaged 14 miles per gallon, and we have 14 gallons of gas left. 14 gallons of gas left. Okay? So if you just multiply those two numbers together, you're going to get 20 times 14, which is going to give you 280. 20 times 14, 280. Okay? What I'd like y'all to do is, some of you, that is crystal clear. Others of you, that's not crystal clear. Okay? So first thing is, when you go to the breakout rooms, which I'm going to do now, is I would like for one person to share the whiteboard, not their screen, to share. Like, you're going to share your screen, but when you choose to share your screen, I want you to choose the option of whiteboard. Okay? And I'm going to come visit the rooms to make sure you're doing this. And I want you to draw all of that out step by step. Okay? Because remember, we always have problem solving phase to make sure that everyone in the group, not you, whoever you are, but everyone in the group fully understands how do we solve that problem mathematically, step by step by step. Draw out your recipe, have your algorithm done. So step one of the algorithm is we need to read all of those 4 values from the user. And then I want you to talk about mathematically how you're going to actually solve the problem. So do that on the whiteboard. I'm going to come visit each group within like the first 2 minutes. I want to make sure everyone, I want to see on the whiteboard the math that's being used in detail. So I want to see your recipe right out on the whiteboard. Step 1, read these values from the user. Step 2, calculate this. Step 3, calculate that. Write all of that out, please. Then make sure that everyone in the group understands perfectly. Once that's done, someone else share the screen and actually go code this up. Okay, so I'm going to make the breakout rooms. Here we go. And I'll make 4 rooms. Let's see, I want to see who's in the rooms. Yeah, no, we got to move this around. Let's see, I'm going to put, bear with me, to 3. And cool. I was just looking at who's in the rooms. I have a feeling of who are the strong students. I want to try to shift y'all around. Here we go.
It's under the share screen, correct?
Yeah.
I see it now. Do you want me to share?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, David.
All right. Can you see it?
Yeah.
All right, hold on. This is just a test. Can you see that?
Absolutely.
All right, yeah. So, all right. So, step 1 is obviously just get the values. If I can English, that is.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to write.
Oh wait, there's a text. Oh, I
There
can
is
just
there is a
type it.
text. Yep, you can just type.
All right, so we need. It was the domin meet.
It's the
So
odometer.
and
How about
Yeah.
get values, and then like you can put each of the 4 values. Like call it odometer initial or odometer. Yeah,
so
odometer read 1, odometer read 2, maybe, or whatever you want to call it.
in starting gallons. Part of my English.
Cool. I'll be back.
Second gallon.
When I subtract the
Who's
first
sharing?
one from the second one, me, Leighton.
Cool.
So you can figure out how many miles they drove. So you would do the second one minus the first one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also you need how much gallons of gas you currently have,
Right.
like your tank holds. So which this case was like 15.
Yeah.
Here's
Yeah,
15.
15 was the starting value, and then after driving 20 miles, you had
14.
14 miles, so you'd subtract those two as well. And
You want to do the gallons you had minus the gallons you have left
Yeah, and so when y'all
to
think
figure
about
out how
14
many
left?
you use.
yeah, and when y'all think about the variables, I'd actually rephrase that question. So y'all think of a better way of rephrasing that output that I have there when it says how many gallons does your tank hold? Because the assumption of that problem is that you're starting at a full tank. But you might just want to say how many gallons of gas were there initially, and then how many gallons of gas were there on the second reading. Something like that. Y'all can figure out the appropriate variable names.
So that's going to tell you how many gallons you use.
Yep.
Okay.
And
then you're just going to do your division. So you're going to have your original miles traveled divided by your gallons used up during that period of time, and that's going to be your
Right.
miles per gallon.
Can I make a suggestion for you? See how it's hard to write with the mouse. You see that whoever's sharing that there's an option as well to use text.
Oh yeah.
So you can actually maybe type step 1, get values, and actually go ahead and make your variables there. So if you type step 1, get values, colon, yeah. And then go ahead and give your variables some names on the next line. Hit enter, yeah. And so give your variables some, now people, yeah, I can actually see what you're typing. Everyone can see, right?
Yeah.
So give those variables names. What do you want to call them?
you can call it just like first reading, like odometer reading, but that's kind of long. So you can just, I don't know
So-
what you
Like-
want to call
Initial
OD1.
reading.
I like Odo 1, or I mean, this is
it. Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, because you're going to have initial for miles and for gallons.
You
Initial.
just,
Oh, okay. Sure. Initial miles.
Oh.
What else do you want to call?
Second miles.
You could just do like mile 1 or something. It's like
yeah,
long.
yeah. I'd call it mile 1, mile 2, or mile read 1,
Yeah.
mile read 2.
Mile.
Whatever. Look, y'all are the programmers. Y'all can choose those things.
Okay.
and then you're going to want to subtract mile 2 from mile 1.
Or like, so like distance traveled. What do you want to call it?
Just say miles driven equals
Yeah, I
miles
like
driven
that. Perfect. Miles driven.
Okay.
equals miles
what?
2 minus miles 1.
Perfect. And you can drag over the right side of that
Yeah.
text
That's
box.
And then you can do gallons used equals gallons 1 minus gallons 2. If that's what you want to call it.
Ones.
What's a better name, Chloe?
I don't know. I wasn't sure. I don't know.
I just put
That's
like
fine.
fuel, but then the number 1. You don't even need the underscore 2. Just like put fuel and then the digit
It's
1.
fine. That's
Fuel
fine.
1, fuel 2, mile 1, mile 2.
That's true.
Yeah, but all no, all that looks good. Gallon. No, I like no. That was for gallons used.
Oh,
He
geez.
was saying for.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Oh,
Rip.
I didn't click
fast.
delete.
it's okay. Just type fast. You want to have all that because I want to make sure everyone can see those variables.
Okay.
Cool. I'll be back. Nicely going. And then once you're done typing that out with those equations, once you have your gallons used and miles driven, talk about how you then get miles per hour, and then how you get your, no, I'm sorry, miles per gallon, and then how you get your miles remaining. Make sure everyone's clear on all of the equations before you do the actual code. Nice. Nice. So second reading minus first gets gallons. I assume that's like gallons used. Yeah, total gallons minus gallons left. Miles per gallon is the change in miles times the change in gallons.
Well, the change in gallons is 1. So if you multiply.
Well, let's pretend the change in gallons was 2. Let's say we had used 2 gallons and we went 40 miles.
Oh, yeah.
So so miles per gallons is really going to be what? If we had gone 40 miles, let's say you went 40 miles, but you had used 2 gallons.
Divide.
Yeah, so it's going to be a divide here, that's all. You're good. You don't need to go change it. I'll put the divide mark for you. I'm erasing these other marks. So once you get your miles per gallon, then it's just miles per gallon times gallons left. So the question is, does everyone understand that perfectly?
Much.
Yep.
Wholesome?
Yes.
Perfect. So if y'all are all good, because that's what I wanted just written out. Once y'all get that, y'all are ready to code. So someone else can share, and y'all can start your coding. Nicely done.
So who wants to share?
Whoever's typing, y'all can actually drag over that text box somewhere to the right if you needed to, just to get it all on one line.
Oh, yeah, I know.
That is a big equation. Current gas minus initial gas divided by current odometer minus initial odometer times the current gas. Are you sure that's what you want?
I think so.
So that's why I wouldn't recommend personally doing all that on one huge equation, because it might be hard for. I would have encouraged, you can leave that there, but I would have encouraged you to maybe have a variable called gallons used. Can you see me typing? Can y'all see me typing?
I don't think so. No,
Okay.
should I stop sharing?
No, it's because you're sharing. That's okay. Hold on one second. So gallons used is going to be what? Current gas minus initial gas, right? So you have that. So you'll see that now. What about miles driven? I want to be able to catch y'all up here. Miles driven is going to be equal to what? Your odometer first reading, no, odometer second reading. I'll call it odo2, odometer 2 minus odometer 1. I'll just call it that. Do we agree with those two statements?
Yep.
So if you had gone, let's just say, because your equation might be right, let's think about it. If you had driven 40 miles and you used 2 gallons of gas, so 40 miles and you used 2 gallons of gas, how many miles per gallon? That's a simple question. If you drove 40 miles and 2 gallons of gas, how many miles per gallon?
20.
20. So how do we get to 20? We divided the miles by the gallons.
Oh, yeah.
So y'all are dividing the gallons by the miles.
Yeah.
So these things are kind of flipped here.
Oh, yeah.
So once you get your miles per gallons, then absolutely you're going to multiply that times your remaining gas. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Ridwan?
Yes.
I don't know, and if the other Mariam, I don't know who that is. So if that makes sense, y'all are ready to code. I just wanted to make sure y'all on the right track. But yeah, y'all are ready to code. So whoever wants to share and code, y'all are good. I will be back. So someone can share their screen, please, and start coding.
I could share it. I already have a decent amount.
Wait, I wonder what could happen. What would happen if I did this?
Who's coding it?
Me.
Mohan.
Mohan.
Cool. Mohan, hope you don't mind my asking since I can see you. How old are you?
13.
That's great. My son who's in here, he learned Java when he was 10 and 11. So test it with some other values as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
So
do.
put
I was
50
wondering
put
what happened.
50,000 put 50,000 and 60. Oh no, 5,060 right now.
I was
Oh no,
wondering
I'm
what
sorry.
happened if we put like the second amount of gas is the same amount. We're just going for infinite.
Well, first let's just make sure your numbers are correct. I'll have you do that, but first put 15. No, like on the next thing. How many gallons of gas? Put 15. Yeah. And here put 5060. So you drove 60 miles. And let's just say that you used two, so you have 13 left, 13 gallons left. So that should have been 30 times 13. Yep. So you get 390. So calculations look good. So now just test it out with other numbers for kicks. But yeah, that looks great. Make sure that everyone in your group understands.
You guys understand?
Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty straightforward, I think.
Yeah, we're
Blank. Blank miles. Before. Who's recording this?
Whenever
Okay.
I'm the host, whenever I go into a room, the recording follows me.
No, I didn't know you had joined.
Yep.
You can go 280 miles before, what was it? Before needing to refuel. Needing to refuel.
What is that for?
Do you have an extra line just right here? 280.0.
Oh, okay. Just, I don't know why that's even there. You don't need that.
Mhm.
I don't even know why that's there. Put your dot format. Come on.
My goodness. Dot format. We're putting here.
You got two T's on that format.
Yep. This keyboard's awesome. Am I? Stop. Okay, they're not. Are there no pop-ups in Donnie?
Thani is not a great IDE as far as to help you programming. It's a good educational IDE, but that's about it. Okay, right? Test it. Okay, I want to give you some numbers, please. 50,000. How far have you previously driven? Fine, 50,000. Put your 15 now. Here I want 50,060. 50060. No, right there, 60. Yep, and then 13. So that'll be, yep, that's perfect. It should be 390. Cool. Looks like it's working. Make sure everyone understands.
Cool. Everyone good?
Yep.
My Mariam?
All right.
Is that my
Yes.
Mariam? Do you understand all of that?
Yeah.
Is it clear?
Yes.
Love you.
Love you.
Nicely done. Is it working correctly?
Yes.
Certainly looks good.
Oh.
Of course, it gives
Yeah.
an error now that I show up, right?
Yeah, because I put one in here and one here. It's trying to divide by 0.
Yep, absolutely. Nice catch. Do you realize that? Oh, because it says division by 0 too. Yeah. Cool. I'm going to go make sure that everyone in the room, though, is on the same page, that it's perfectly clear. So did y'all check it? Is it working?
Yes.
Very nice. I'm going to go bring everyone back to the main room then.
You're muted.
I am. Charles, can you share your screen, please, to very quickly show us your code? Y'all had, most groups had something very similar. I like the variable names, is why I was asking him to show his code. Although I like them because I'm a Java programmer, and that looks like Java. So now that I was saying I want you to show it because I liked your names, but now I'm realizing, dang it, I shouldn't actually say I like them, because those are Java names. Are you a Java programmer, Charles?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, that's why. So it's going to be painful for you, but those names, hypothetically, if you were years later, you got hired in a job to program in Python, and if you coded like that, you'd get reprimanded, truly. So because the the you used camel case, which is what you use for Java, which is why I initially liked it. Then I realized, wait, this is this is not Java. So yeah, you need to use. It's painful at first as a Java programmer, which I consider myself more of a C and Java programmer. It's painful to not use like that style, but like your line 16 would be miles underscore per underscore gallon, all lowercase. Don't go change it, but I'm just saying anywhere you have multiple words as a variable name, it's weird. It's hard to get used to, but it is all lowercase with underscores between them. That is the Python, according to the Python style guide. And we haven't talked much about styles in this classroom during this boot camp, but as many people already know, but I'll say it now, the reason why they have style guides, and I know you know this, Charles, but for everyone else, within a language is, imagine you have, you pick a large company, you have 10,000 developers, 100,000 developers that are all programming. And within teams, you have, a couple dozen of you. Everyone has to have the exact same style so the program all looks the same. And if people had different styles, it would be just a big mess. And so they have style guides for each language where the developers are expected to follow those styles. And so we'll talk more about that, especially next week once we get into if and else with indentation, and we'll talk about how Python style guide requires indentation. But anyway, I liked this because I liked your choice of variable names, as opposed to like some groups just had very minimal, like an ABC type of variable name, or MI1, MI2, which is fine. But these variable names are very clear for anyone who's reading. It's very clear what you did. And I like the fact that you did not try to do all of it on one line. I like the fact that you first calculated your miles per gallon, which is clear, the change in miles and your change in gallons. You calculated your miles left, which I thought was nice. So everything was very clear. So no one's going to look at this and be confused on what you're doing. So everyone basically had the same code, but this was what I thought was a nice example of very clear code. So nicely done for everyone. So let me stop that share, or you can stop. Great. I'm trying to see how much time we have left, so that it should be ending soon, but it has not popped up and shown me. Does anyone else see the time? The actual time within our session?
I do not.
Yeah, maybe it's untimed at the moment because it should have kicked us out. It's weird. It's supposed to be a 40-minute minimum session, but then other times it'll just keep on going. So anyway, I just wanted to cover, let's see what has not been covered, because I see we're also at an hour and 20 minutes, which is probably way too long for many of you. So I'm not going to cover in the slides where it says formatting numbers and strings, because we did that in detail on the last session. And frankly, one day in the future, I need to come change this module and update this to the way I prefer formatted printing, which is not as you see here. So you're welcome to go read through that. But frankly, I don't like I want to change it. So I taught you formatted printing on last session in the exact way that I think you should learn it. So I'm actually not going to cover what's in the slides. I covered it, I think, better already. And the final thing in here was simply this Kool-Aid example, which is actually, and I don't have the solution, thankfully,